told you lose more money by making and selling unlinked gear on main servers than by being stuck with account link gear from FWC, would you believe me? Okay. How about if I said it applies to everyone, both whale and free-to-play, and veteran and new? We're about 2 to 3 months away from the next FWC, and I'm starting to see people worry about this, so let's talk about it. Starting with whale gear. Let's say you spend 50,000 FC, or the Penya equivalent, on Lusaka's Crystal Axe in FWC 2. Then, if you're frugal, you use low spros to make it +8, which I believe FC price was around 400 mil at the time, so getting it to +8 converted to F coin was around 125 FC. S Pro to 9 and 10, which, assuming you don't want to trust your 50k investment to strangers, you had to use regular S Pros and ran through about 39 of them for 9 and 10, plus the cost of materials and fees. All in all, that ran you another 1.3 bill, which is about 3100 FC. Converting your weapon to ultimate was another 2k FC if you bought an ultimate kit from someone you trust. Otherwise, it was 3k FC for buying all of your shining oris. After conversion, it cost you another 35 sunstones and X Pros on average to get it to +5, which is about another 3 bill or 7500 FC. Using it to 5 slots is another 31 G Pros plus fee, but if you bought your G Pros from player shops instead of F coin, you got a bit of a discount, so you could have managed it for just 1 bill or 2500 FC. We've avoided soul linked items so far, but that's a lot harder for A cards. Fortunately for us, A card boxes and unlinked Thornay were very similar in price at some point. I believe 1.5 KFC per card, so 7500 FC for Thorn cards. Also, it's only 5 cards. I'm inclined to believe if you're spending this much time or money on this game, you have at least a few people you can trust to get your A cards from. And then it's around 20 stats rolls to get +3 strength on it, so that's another 1 KFC. Finally, you have to roll your base and ultimate sets. This is the part subject to the most RNG, of course, but we will stick to averages here. For ultimate stats, I think you probably stop in the first lifesteal you got, or a 4% attack, which is roughly equal to 3% PvE damage. So the chance of getting any of those is 1 in 4, but we're rejecting the lower attack and PvE rules, so it's actually going to be 1 in 6. So 6 ultimate bonus scrolls on average to get a line you want, or 6 KFC. There's 10 values of critical damage and 4 values of critical chance, ignoring decimals, and assuming you're rolling until you're within 1% of the max value for both, you'll need around 40 scrolls of ultimate power, or 12 KFC. All of that added up, buying and upgrading this axe cost you 91 KFC on FWC. Now let's go way back in time, all the way back to before the second FWC when Wilds had just released. Back then on Muchboy server, Osaka's Crystal Axe sold for 40 bill, when F-Coin went for 200 mil per 1000. And no, that was not a one-off, and I know because I was part of a group that sold a Crystal Bowl for 40 bill just days before FWC was announced. So 200,000 FC. We're already double the price of the axe on FWC, and we haven't done a damn thing yet. While FWC has doubled upgrade rates, many of those things we listed up there cost exactly the same on main server, like ultimate stats and 8 cards. Upgrades on the axe cost 41k on FWC. Let's see how much higher it goes now. On FWC, you could upgrade to +8 with low spros. On main server, however, you can only reach +7, and doing so will cost you 250 FC at the prices back then. So 125 more than before. S-Pro costs will be more than double since you now also have to upgrade from 7 to 8. You can expect to use 89 spros to hit 10. Factoring in materials and fees, this will cost you about 1.5 bill back then. 7500 FC, which is 4400 more F-Coin than in FWC. Ultimate conversion is the one thing that's actually cheaper on the main servers. We'll value this at 1k, so minus 2000, assuming you buy the Shining Oris. They were much more expensive back then, but only because Calcus didn't exist in the beginning. This last part's a bit weird, but before Kylan released, Ultimate Weapon upgrading used a system similar to Low Spros that made +5 cost about 13 times more than on main server. So 35 Sunstones was the average for +5 on FWC, but on main server it was 450. Understandably, even among whales, an extremely small number of people went for +5. We'll assume you stopped at +3, which cost the same number of sunstones as 5 on FWC, so no changes there. 5 piercing slots is just straight up doubled, assuming everything else being the same, so 2500 FC extra. All other costs are unchanged, so let's skip over talking about them. Adding it all up, the axe cost 200k, upgrading costs were 41k on FWC, but since you did it on main servers, it cost you about an additional 5k FC for a total 246,000 F coin. Unfortunately, I couldn't find what a crystal axe actually sold for on Mushboy, but there are a bunch of upgraded axes listed for 15 bill at 300 mil per k or 50k FC, so let's just work with that. Obviously, prices are falling because Lusaka's crystal isn't the in-game weapon anymore, since now there's Butch's Carnage at 180. So our example axe cost us 247k FC to make, and it's expected to sell for 50k FC, which is a difference of 197,000. So now we have two timelines. In both timelines, you start with 246k FC. In the first one, you bought and upgraded your crystal axe on main server for 246k and sold it today for 50k FC. Now you have 50k FC in your pocket. In the second timeline, you did the same thing, but on FWC for 91k FC. You still have 155k FC in your pocket, and you still have your axe. You don't need it anymore, so you could just trash your wardrobe it. Also, for the time period you were using the axe, it was upgraded higher than if you had it on main server. Yes, technically speaking, crystal axes on FWC2 were 100k FC. If you got it on FWC2, an axe cost you a total 141k FC, which still leaves you with 105k FC, which is still more than if you bought and sold an axe on main servers. Now, some of you are probably thinking all of this sounds really theoretical, but let me tell you a personal story. Before FWC2, I bought a clean Abyss for 18 bill and a clean Matrix set for 12 bill. Again, F-coin price on Mushboy at the time was 200 mil, so I spent the equivalent of 150k FC on those items. Recently, multiple fully upgraded 1028 Matrix sets have sold for 3 bill, with FC prices sitting at 300 mil, so 10k FC. Abyss is a little harder to track down, but I found one that was Ultimate plus 6 sold for 5 bill, or about 16-17k FC. We're at a small fraction of the buying cost without even going to the cost of upgrading the weapon and set. Back in FWC too, I actually made 2 nights and bought 10-20% Matrix sets for both of them, costing me 4.5p each when FC was 150 mil per k, or 30k FC for each set. And the Abyss? They were 5k when I bought mine. Actually, I bought a Leviathan, but that's besides the point. Obviously, as a 200 weapon, it would cost more than the 41k FC we estimated for the Crystal Axe earlier to fully upgrade the Abyss, but it's still going to be way less than the 120k FC we theoretically would have had left over after getting our Matrix set. After accounting for upgrading costs on the main server, I don't even have to do the math to know I could make 2 sets and weapons on FWC and still have money left over. So, 150k FC for clean weapons and armor on main server would sell for 27k FC fully upgraded today. If I didn't buy anything on main server and just got them on FWC, I would have the same thing, but I would also have around 123k unspent FC with the Pena, plus however much I spent on upgrading still in my bank. Remember, you don't even have to level a new character for all of this gear to transfer. Level 20 is perfectly fine for carrying gear over to your main server, though you'll probably want to be 30 to be able to sell F-coins though. Or 120 if you want to sell ultimate scrolls, which always sell the fastest in my experience. So that's nice for the whales, I guess. What about the free-to-play players? If we're being technical, F2P actually covers an insane range of players, including some people who many would consider to be whales, but they got to where they are because they spent a ton of time playing every day. So here's what I probably imagine what most people are referring to when they say free-to-play. The best weapon they expect themselves to get is a plus 10 bloody, might shift to a cursed weapon at 175. The best armor set they expect themselves to get is an 828 wilds or coral set depending on their needs. Or a 175 or 180 set this year, I guess. Maybe they'll manage to find themselves a clean ultimate jewelry set through dungeon runs. I've heard both cursed and infernal wilds are still being ran, so that could be where they get theirs. And finally, They have low expectations of the level they expect to reach. I've seen a lot of people set 120 as their goal, but let's say for the sake of our example, FTB players aim to hit 180 for their in-game equipment. Though, if you want my opinion, it's not unrealistic to hit 190 as long as you're not some extreme case like, I don't know, starting on the last month with only an hour to play per day or something. Okay, so just to be clear, I don't really get many chances to interact with FTB players anymore, so I'm just kind of guessing based on the two main types of advice given out, which are that it's cheaper to buy gear already upgraded than it is to make your own, and Lowe's Bros are a cheap FTP way to upgrade your gear. I imagine people self-sort into one category or another, possibly moving from the second group to the first for stuff like plus 10 bloodies and 20% 135 sets, since those last a while, which coincidentally is the one group that loses the most from getting their gear account linked since you can easily buy and sell upgraded leveling gear at cost or even a profit if you're patient. You do try and sell that kind of gear before FWC ends, you need a plan to reacquire them on your destination server though. And given you need to actually sell them early enough to execute on your plan, you might have been able to just farm the money you would have earned by selling it anyway. Like, how much do you get from an hour of leveling in Azria or Coral? 20-30 mil easily? So like, each hour you play per day translates to like a bill over a month. Or if you do other stuff that happens to make money like a good red meteor or Kryton drop. Oh, one good coral weapon and you're just way ahead, aren't you? Not unreasonable on FWC, just saying. So what about the group that makes their own gear with Lowe's Bros? I wouldn't say this is really a group that has to worry about their getting account linked unless they start FWC really late. They can make plus 8 gear easier and cheaper than on main server, and once they get to the Azria levels they can save up to buy upgraded bloody weapons and 135 sets and become the group we just talked about. For those who actually started late though and won't reach that point, technically they lose money from not being able to sell it, but the counter-argument is they wouldn't have been able to make plus 8 gear on main servers in the first place. Well, can't in the sense that the cost of making plus 8 with lowest pros on the main server is higher than just using regular S pros. Look here, making plus 7 on FWC is less than 20% of the cost compared to doing it on main server. Even plus 8 on FWC is cheaper. As I brought up earlier, you'll make more money from using the gear than by selling it and not being able to level for a month or whatever. You'll be higher level too. There you have it. Don't worry about silly stuff like losing money from not being able to sell your gear. You saved a ton of money just by getting it on FWC.